What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome back to my banner review series for Fire Emblem Heroes. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the units from the Branded King banner, which features female and male Morgan and also Exalt Chrom. So let's begin with female Morgan. She's our first non-seasonal mage flyer and her good base attack and high resistance are her main strengths. Her HP is not very high, but she does have a super boon in HP, which can be nice to have if you want to use her as a mage tank, and she's also quite slow. Her defense is also very low, so even if you run Iot Shield Sacred Seal, she will still take a lot of damage from common archers, and she has a super bane in defense too, which makes her even more frail on the physical side and also lets her score less in arena with this super bane unless she's plus HP IV. Her BST is 150, which is highest for a mage flyer. Her weapon is Blair's Serpent, which is a new tome which gives plus 6 defense and plus 6 res when you're up against a ranged enemy. It is pretty much a tome version of Guard Bow. This weapon is inheritable to other blue mages and you can also refine it. This tome is great for enemy phase mages like her father, male Robin, who can run triple distant defense, and with this tome he can reach 50 defense and 40 resistance in the enemy phase. Oliver can also make use of this, and Valentine Lynn is one of the best users of this tome, and after Ward Armor buffs, she can be incredibly bulky with this tome, and I hope they can soon release the red and the green version of this tome so that other bulky mages can also use it. Iceberg is her special, and it's her best special because of her high res. Mirror Stance is a new skill which is the enemy phase version of Mirror Strike, and this gives plus 4 res and plus 4 attack in the enemy phase. This skill is good on mage tanks like Felicia, who would like the res buff, but they also need attack. Julia can similarly make use of this, and Soren can be used pretty well with this skill with his Winds brand as well. Her slot B skill is Guard, which is a good skill for tanks, but I think Quick Riposte is a better slot B option for her. Her resistance is already so high with Serpent Tome that even without Guard, she can easily destroy units like Plust and merge Quick Pulse Reinhardt, so she doesn't really need to run this, and you could replace it with something better if you want to invest into her more. She's got Attack Ploy as a slot C skill, so she can reduce even more damage with the help of this skill, and her base kit is quite good, and Morgan is a fantastic mage tank. We can compare her to Summer Corrin, the other blue mage flyer in the game, and Morgan cannot achieve what Summer Corrin can offensively because of lack of her speed. Morgan is a more defensive unit and has a higher attack. She can still run a Blade Tome like Summer Corrin and hit hard, but she will not be able to easily get doubles like Summer Corrin, thus being less potent as a Blade Tome unit. Female Morgan is a pretty decent mage. She might not look very outstanding or very impressive like other newly released units that we have got in past few months, but she's a viable range flyer who is a mage tank, and if you didn't get any other seasonal flyers, then she is your only option as of right now for a range flyer. Her best boon is attack most of the time, and the best bane for her is either defense or HP. Now let's take a look at her builds. The first one is a budget build. Her base kit is already pretty good, so if you do not want to spend more resources, then you can just run it. And the second set is more optimal with the combo of Quick Riposte and Distant Defense. The first two sets can be run with any IV Morgan, even a minus attack or minus speed Morgan, and minus speed is not actually all that bad because she's already pretty slow, and minus attack is definitely her worst bane. The third set has got triple distant defense, which lets her reach 54 resistance in the enemy phase, which is enough for her to even survive hits from green mages, which is quite incredible. If you use her on a Fire Emblem team, then she can become ridiculously bulky on the magical side with the Fortify Flyers buff and triple distant defense. Female Morgan can also utilize a defensive Altom set. You will have to let go of Blair's Serpent and its plus 6 res, but in exchange you get speed and attack bonus with res bonus when allies are near her. If you do not have a Summer Corrin, then Morgan is worth building as a Blade Tome unit because of her good attack. If you were lucky enough to get a plus speed Morgan, then you can definitely run the 5th set, and if you do not have a plus speed Morgan, then you can go with the 6th set, and it can even be run with a plus attack minus speed Morgan. Glimmer is a fantastic option with high attack Blade Tome mages, and the 6th set also has Res Ploy Secret Seal, which is data mined to be the next Secret Seal in this week's Tempest Trial, and with Res Ploy and Death Blow she can hit really hard. Blue Tomb Breaker allows her to double high res blue mages like Micaiah and Lute, the former being more common in tier 20 arena, and even Valentine Lynn on Armor Emblem teams who has got very high res. If you do not have Summer Corrin, then Blade Tome Morgan is pretty good on a Fire Emblem team. Now let's take a look at Chrom. So this time he's a Cavalier and he has got the highest base attack for a cavalry unit in the entire game. His defense is also pretty good with decent HP, so he's quite bulky on the physical side, and his speed is low, but with a plus speed IV, Fury, and his Falchion buff, he can reach a good amount of speed, and he does have a super bane in speed, so if you do get a minus speed IV Chrom, then he will get doubled by pretty much everyone. His resistance is very low, so he will take a lot of damage from mages and dragons especially, who he's going to be targeting, and he also has a super bane in resistance, dropping it to 13, so he has got 3 super banes in HP, speed, and res, which is quite depressing to be honest. His weapon is Sealed Falchion, which is effective on dragons and gives him a massive plus 5 buff in combat to all of his stats when he's not at full HP. So this buff is a spur buff which only applies in combat, so it can be stacked up with field buffs like Hone Cavalry, and plus 5 buff to all of his stats is incredible. This Falchion is not refinable and it doesn't have renewal built into it, and his special is Ether, which could conflict with Sealed Falchion, but not really if you're running his default Fury, then Ether provides good survivability. It scores well in Arena and also works out in a mode like Tempest Trial if you're going to be using him, and his slot A skill is Fury, which synergizes extremely well with Sealed Falchion, and just after one combat he will enter the Sealed Falchion range because of Fury, and it is pretty much his best slot A skill, so you should not really change this. Chill Defense as a slot B skill, this skill makes Chrom hit even harder, and this skill in general is great with high attack units, but for Chrom in particular, Chill Defense is really good because he's supposed to take out dragons, and dragons typically have really high defense, and their most used refine for breaths is Defense Refine, and maybe after that Speed Refine, but usually you're going to be facing high defense dragons with a Defense Refine, which makes them susceptible to Chill Defense, so this skill makes Chrom's job easier against dragons. If you get more than one Chrom, then these are some of the builds who can utilize Chill Defense nicely. Bright Cordelia with a Fire Sweep bow can utilize this skill and hit armored units and dragons very hard, and Ephraim can support his teammates with Chill Defense and also provide them the Hone attack buff alongside that, and Chill Defense also helps him get more one-round KOs with his Siegmund Refine. Brave weapon users and Brave bow users who do not have enough speed to run a quad attacking set, they can definitely run Chill Defense on the slot B and have enough attack to just simply take out enemies with 2 heads. Chrom's slot C skill is Sword Valor, which Grey also has, and now that we have got special training maps on the rotation, which make getting SP pretty easy, Sword Valor can be quite useful in grinding your sword units, so this is the one use that you will definitely get out of him despite his IVs. Chrom is not a very offensive unit to the degree of Siegbert or Brave Roy due to his less speed, but also not as much of a tank like Sigurd due to lack of his Divine Tearfing. He's right in the middle of being a balanced unit between both. However, none of these Cavaliers can hit dragons insanely hard like Chrom can. He's a great asset for Horse Emblem teams because dragons do annoy Reinhardt and Brave Lynn, and Chrom with Horse Emblem buffs can easily wipe them out. Even outside of a Horse Emblem team, he's a very good dragon slayer, and a Sealed Falchion is a really good weapon, but you have to take some damage to use its effect. His base kit is also quite fantastic and synergetic, and he's definitely the best unit from this banner in my opinion. Now let's take a look at some of his builds. The first set is a budget set that can be used with any IV Chrom. Even a minus attack IV Chrom can still reach high enough attack to make good use of Heavy Blade Sacred Seal. The second set works best with a plus speed IV Chrom. Fury already has good synergy with Desperation, and with Sealed Falchion buff, he can easily reach 42 speed, which is quite a lot. Ether could mess up Desperation, so that's why running Bonfire is better for this kind of offensive set. You can also run Vantage like the third set and hit the enemy with his 65 attack stat when he's in the Vantage range. Fury and Vantage have got good synergy with each other, and Vantage is also a budget option. If you have an extra Sorin and if you have Phantom Sweet Sacred Seal upgraded, then you can also run Water Sweep on Chrom so that he can safely initiate combat against dragons, and this set is best used with a Dancer. You can easily wipe out Dragon Emblem teams with this set. He reaches 41 speed with Phantom Sweet Sacred Seal, which is good enough against dragons, and this can also provide a way for you to deal with close counter Winter Tharja, and this also makes it pretty easy for him to get into the range of his Sealed Falchion against a lot of the quick riposte dragons. And at last, he can run a Brash Assault and Desperation set. This set can even be run by a minus speed IV Chrom, and once again, Ether can conflict with this, so just to be safe, it's better to use Bonfire as your special. So those were his sets. Now let's move on to male Morgan. Morgan is an infantry red mage with a really good offensive stat spread of 33 base attack and 34 base speed. His HP is decent, but his bulk is quite mediocre. Rima's Shoot gives him plus 3 defense, but the thing is that his defense is already so low that it doesn't really make a difference most of the time unless you run Fury or have plus defense IV. Morgan thankfully does not have a super bane like the other two units from this banner and just has a super boon in HP, which is really good. His weapon is Grima's Strut, which gives him plus 3 defense and inflicts minus 5 attack and minus 5 speed to the foe and the enemies within 2 spaces, and then he buffs himself and his allies within 2 spaces with plus 5 attack and plus 5 speed. To take full advantage of the attack and speed buff, you will have to initiate combat in the player phase, because if Morgan gives your units buffs in the enemy phase, then those buffs will vanish when you get your player phase, as they only last for a turn. It's the first tome that debuffs while buffing allies. It's quite similar to Soat's Peshcats and Refined Light Breath, but a toned down version of that. His special is Dragon Fang, which isn't the best special for him, but it's decent enough for a budget set. A 3-turn cooldown or a 2-turn cooldown special is better for him. And his slot B skill is Dull Range, which is a new skill that faces heavy competition from other popular slot B skills. It ignores ranged enemies' visible buffs, and this skill as a slot B skill is quite situational, and I would have liked if this was a Sacred Seal, and all of the Valentine units except for Hector have this skill built into their weapon, so it's not really the best skill to be run for slot B. There are many better options than this. If this was more versatile and ignored the buffs of not just ranged enemies but all of the foes, then that would have been better, and we will probably see the skill used in modes like Grand Hero Battles and Bound Hero Battles on the enemy units, and then they'll give us something like a quest to use a Horse Emblem team, and then Dull Range would act as an obstacle for the players. His slot C skill is Spur Defense and Res, which is a good combo with the attack debuff he can do with his weapon, and Morgan's offensive stat line is amazing. Like I said, for an infantry red mage, it's better than Katarina and Tharjas actually, and this makes him a really good candidate to run a Blade Tome. Even though Morgan appears to be a defensive unit by his base kit, he's to be used in the player phase to utilize Grima's Strength and a Blade Tome if you can run that on him, and let's take a look at his best builds. The first set is a budget set, and Fury or Triangle Adept can be run on his slot A as a budget option, and Fury more so as it helps him with his speed, and this can be run with any IV Morgan. The second set is more for a weird IV Morgan that doesn't have an attack or a speed boon, and if you have a minus speed IV Morgan, then you can very well use him with Triangle Adept and Axe Breaker. And in past few months we have got some extremely strong green units, and axe armored units are quite common in arena. Not only Triangle Adept helps you check them, but also helps Morgan initiate combat safely against these green units so that he can buff himself and his allies with Grima's Strength. An Axe Breaker helps him break through the very fighter of such axe armor units, and Moonbow will proc in every round if the axe unit can counterattack, which a lot of the distant counter axe units can. So this is a good set, like I said, with Morgan, who doesn't have the best IVs. It's also not a very expensive set to make. The third set is a Desperation set, which uses a solid offensive stat line to good use, and as I've said before, the Sacred Seals for the next Tempest Trial have been Data Mine and Defense Tactic as one of them. With Rest Tactic from Lara Shell and Defense Tactic Sacred Seal, after Grima's Strength buff, he can buff all stats of allies, so you could definitely use him as a buffer and utilize Grima's Strength with that. The fifth set once again makes use of Grima's Strength. Not only it buffs his allies, but it also buffs up Morgan himself with plus 5 attack and plus 5 speed after he attacks someone. So with Double Savage Blow, you can chip away the health of enemies while giving them the debuff, and when he gets buffed himself with Grima's Strength, and if he's in the Vantage range, he can hit quite hard and finish off the debuffed and the weakened enemies. Savage Vantage has got amazing synergy with Grima's Strength and the buffs he gets. The sixth set uses Wind Sweep to initiate combat safely against distant counter units and physical units, so that he can buff and debuff with Grima's Strength, and his speed is good enough to make use of that, and even Phantom Speed 1 or 2 will suffice. As I mentioned before, he's a fantastic user of a Blade Tome if you purely want him for offense, and the slot A skill can be changed depending on the availability of your units. Overall, I would say that this banner doesn't have any power creep units and just has solid viable units who are not insane. I mean, you can definitely debate over Chrom, but still, he has got very big flaws as a unit, and the best unit from this banner is definitely Chrom, then Male Morgan, and at last Female Morgan in my opinion. This banner caters to a specific demand more so than other banners because If you want a defensive blue mage or a mage flyer, then you can summon for female Morgan. If you want a debuffer and a good red mage, then you can go with male Morgan. And if you want a dragon slayer, then Chrom is there for you. And if you like Morgans, which people have been asking for a year now, then it's definitely worth summoning for. But if you already have Summer Corrin and a well-built red mage, then there is very little reason for you to summon on this banner, seeing as how on 22nd we're getting new seasonal banner, and as of late these seasonal units are being quite powerful, so that's worth saving for. And also on 29th of this month we will get a legendary banner that will most likely feature the first colorless dragon as a legendary hero, and then also Thracia banner is coming up early next month, so definitely keep that in mind. And if you very specifically need any of these units like a mage flyer, then only summon on this banner in my opinion. So that is gonna be it for this review. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, then please be sure to leave a like, it helps me tremendously. And if you haven't already, then make sure to subscribe for more Fire Emblem Heroes content. And with that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.